time for our conversation with the Minerals Commission, and the CEO, Mr. Martin Ayisi, as always, is here with me on the show. Good morning, Martin.
Morning, how are you?
By the grace of God, I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well too.
Yes.
All right. So last week, we started off with a decade of the reforms in the sector, and you took us through the achievements, how far we've come. And we promised that we're going to speak about the challenges today. But for the benefit of those who may have missed last week's program, if we can just do a recap of how far we've come, especially in the last decade, with the reforms in terms of local participation and local content, then we will zero in on the challenges.
Randy, morning, and it's great to be here again. Yes, you see, in my first encounter with you when we started this program, maybe a year ago, I said something. I think I said, practically it is used to build a mine comes from outside.
Yes.
Either from stock exchanges or equity or loans raised by the various players. That's number one. And then number two, the monies will have to go back. So I think 10 years ago or before 10 years ago, we've always known that for whatever reason, the monies they pay to government and then the monies they spend daily for their various goods and services which they use for their operations. I mean, the gap is so big. So what the commission set out to do is to conduct a research and find out what are these items that they've been using, because we realize that they far so much in terms of operational costs. So we requested for the fine details of the various goods and services they procure. Then throughout the research, of course, we work with the Chamber of Mines. We discovered that several of the goods and services and the items that they use for their daily operations can be obtained here. That's number one. Two, some of them are imported. Three, some of them, actually we can do them, but the quality is poor. So quickly we decided, okay, why don't we have a list where we can agree with industry and say that, oh, as for these ones, we have capacity, so you can't import them. And even if you have to procure them, it must come from Ghanaians as part of what we call a local content. So quickly we started with 8 items in 2014. And then over the years, we know we've been increasing the items. And then for some reason, Parliament passed a law in 2020. Other than that, we were doing it administratively. Okay? We sit down with the chamber and do it. Then, if you look at the 2012 general, regulations, there was a little bit of it. Then we decided to have a special, if you like, a separate regulation for that. So that was LI 2431 in 2020, which now said that every year, Minerals Commission, you don't need to come back to Parliament. Sit down, prepare a list, which you think should cover the goods and services that mining companies should procure. So what we do is that when it's getting to the end of the year, we look at the reports and then look at the items. And then, because we have a research unit, and then we also do the capacity, of the companies or individuals that can supply them. So that's how we come to the conclusion that, as for these items, we have the capacity, whether it's technical, the spec, whatever. These ones, we can do them, but the quantity is not enough to supply the entire industry. So we say, okay, if this one we can do 5 tons and the quality is fine, but the industry needs 10, then we'll say, okay, 50% should be procured from Ghanaians. And then our job now is to advise the minister and say, that gap, because it can be done here, let's come out with policies to see how we can move from the 5 to the full 10 million tons for whatever items. We do that a lot. And then the other things too, that we are not so crazy about who does it. Rather, it should be done here. So that one, whether you're a foreigner from wherever, once you are doing it here, the argument is that you pay taxes, you employ Ghanaians, everything stays here. Maybe you can take your profit. I'll talk about that. Essentially, those in the manufacturing sector. So we've moved away from 2014 8 times 10 to 50 now. We'll do some review this year, not that much, but basically to push up the Ghanaian content. Because let's say if it's 20%, we'll move to 30. If it is 40, we'll move to 50 as the reports filter through. So perhaps by February, we'll do that. So we have moved from maybe a little over or less.
And when you do that, it will take effect from when?
When we do the, ideally, we should have done that last year.
Yes.
But then we needed to check the data on one or two things. Okay. Because you see, when you go and meet industry, you need to also let them understand that this, we have the capacity, so we are not going to allow you. You look so stupid to just push something which you don't have capacity, and then it looks embarrassing. So we got to check the data. Last year, we were able to do it and publish it by 1st January. But this one, I'm taking my time because what I wanted to change, I needed to check the data very well. And then we couldn't also take a day to meet them in December. We'll do it this February. It's not a big deal because you see, their 5-year procurement plans has been submitted already. So you don't need to also disrupt the plans. That is it. Let me read something on that. It says that if you look at Regulation 2, Sub-Regulation 2 of the Minerals and Mining General Regulations at that time, and also what has been repeated in LI 2431, it says that every company must submit a 5-year procurement plan, which, among other things, targets for local procurement covering at least the items in the procurement list. Prospects for local procurement. Listen to the last two, because that will help me when I'm explaining the challenges. Specific support to providers or suppliers. So you see, people don't even know that the mining companies are supposed to do this. We'll touch on that. Other measures to develop the supply of local goods and services, including broadening access to opportunities and technical and financial assistance. I'll discuss that within the context of the challenges. So when they prepared their 5-year procurement plan, many of them submitted it last year, around the second and last quarter. It was based on the 50 items. Okay? So they take each of the items and say, this one I'll procure 100%. This one I'll procure 80. This one I'll procure 50. Some they have no choice. If it is 100, you can't tell me that fuel you buy 70% and import the rest, or you give it to a foreigner staying here. And then we look at it and then sign off. So it means that all the mining companies, as we speak, have an agreed and signed off procurement plans with the Minerals Commission. So right now, we have just gone through the 2020.
But in approving these plans, do you make room for adjustments? Because you keep reviewing
So for example, if whatever reason, Goldfields, Newmont, or even Adamus comes and say, Minerals Commission, in my procurement plan for 2020, for this year, I indicated to the Minerals Commission that this item I'll procure 100%. I'm having some quality issues, or my Ghanaian supplier has delayed me. And if I don't do that, I'll not meet my production target. Or this particular service, if I delay, I will need to shut down my plant and then do general maintenance. So for me to come back, it will be a problem. He will give us the reasons. We will invite them, go through it. Then now we will permit him that for these reasons, you can import or get it from this other person. When they don't do that, and at the end of the year, he submits his report, which is due not later than 31st January. So by next week, many of the reports for 2023 will come through. And then what the local content unit will do is that they will take every item, look at your plan, how much you spent, okay, where you say you buy from. So at the end of the day, when we check, we realize that, oh, you have told us that you buy 90% of this locally. we check your plans, we realize that you bought 87. Can you explain why you did 3% short of the 90? Or if it's 100%, you did 95. So they bring the reasons. If it's not satisfactory, we fine them. I mean, fines could range from anything from $10,000 to $10, $20 million. That's the fines are so punitive that it's difficult for them to get away with it. But in the report we are discussing now, 2022, there were a few mistakes that were made by some of the mining companies.
What if the disruption, as far as their 5-year plan, is as a result of your annual review
Yes.
of the list?
So, for instance, it would be foolhardy on my part to do an extensive review for 2024. Or if I do it, like we did in we did a lot last year because we knew many of them were coming to do their 5-year plan. That's how come we increased the item from 41 to 50. We added 9 between 2022 and 2023. So right now, if my research unit comes to tell me that, oh, boss, this thing we should do it locally, then what we'll do is that we will tell them, let's have a meeting. So there are, by and large, 2 options. Either we say, look, we will not allow this again, but he submitted his plan already, so the contracts you have entered into, they are grandfathered. Okay? Or we'll say, come and do adjustments. So we'll do a meeting before you impose it on them. So I'll give you a typical example. When in 2019, we said no foreign entity or any company whose shareholders and directors, all of them are not Ghanaians, can no longer supply fuel to a mine. The question the mining, so it means that it took effect 1st January 2020. But then a lot of them have entered into contracts in the period under review. So we asked them, we knew. So we asked them, all of you bring your fuel contracts. So some were expiring, let's say March 2020, June 2020, October 2020, etc. So in that case, we'll tell you, after the end of that contract, don't give it to the company again.
So it made exceptions.
So if yours is expiring March, by 1st January, between 1st January and March, you need to do the tender, advertise, and do all that. If you're having some challenges, tell us. There was a case where when we did a publication in December, 1st January, the company's contract was expiring with a foreign entity. So he said, look, can you give me 2-3 months for me to go to the tender process? Other than that, if I do that, you're going to throw me out of business. So we agree with them how to handle the new list without, disrupting their activities.
Right.
Randy, I want to make a statement and I want you to listen carefully. I'll circle back to the lithium debate. We are quick to look at royalties, shareholding, or equity interest of government, corporate income tax. By the way, our taxes in Africa are the highest in mining, and then we conclude and say that we are not getting anything. So I tell people, you can be 60%. Listen carefully to this argument. Granted that we said a year 50% to go to government of Ghana, okay, for the sake of this argument, and this is a hard truth. Maybe the other 40 or so or 50 should go to the company. Randy, you can be there, you can even be 100% shareholder. End of the year, 3, 4, 5 years, you'll not get anything. So let me give you the best example. Look at Newmont. They are building a 3rd mine, 30 kilometers north of their current operations. Most likely, getting to the end of the year, I'm advised they may commission it. Randy, they are spending close to about $1 billion. So you can imagine the amount of capital allowances that are staring at you. I don't see Newmont paying corporate income tax, perhaps 5 years, on that particular Ahafo North project. Do you understand that? But from 1st January to 31st December every year, until such a time that corporate income tax will be due, until such a time that they will declare profit and say, now I'm paying dividends to government, I'm saying, I'm sitting here, that they are spending billions, millions of dollars every year to buy goods and services for half enough. That is where the focus should be. Because the 2022 report, which I'm recapping now, says that they spend 33% of their total receipts in the procurement of goods and services. The figure will go up. You understand? So why are you so crazy? I'm not saying they're not important. Why are you so fixated about, go for 20% royalty, go for 30% royalty, go for 70%, corporate income tax, when the money is the services and goods he procures every day?
Can both be mutually inclusive?
Yeah, they can go together. But Randy, you got to choose your somebody will say you got to look at the data and then make wise decision. Apart from royalties, which is not sensitive to profit, because royalty, whether you are making profit or not, you have to pay. You understand that? You have to pay that. Apart from royalty, all the others are cost issues. So you tell me, do you go for 60% shareholding in a project where you get nothing? Or do you design your policies and programs to ensure that if the person spends $400 million in procuring goods and services, you capture 90 or 80% of that? So the two must go together. Okay? So so I'll tell you what happened in 2012. So 2012, we had this commodity super cycle. There was a mining boom from between 2010 and 11. In fact, 2011 was the best, exciting times for many of the gold mines in the world. Price were at its peak. So I think the finance minister then realized that we had certain provisions in our tax laws relating to mining that were hurting us. So, for example, they were allowed to carry losses forever. Okay? And then capital allowances. So they keep doing that. So quickly, a law was taken to Parliament and said, no, whatever capital allowances you file, you are allowed to take a quarter of that in the year of investment and within 5 years. And then you cannot carry losses forever beyond a certain point. Other than that, if he has $400 or so million, he looks at the year in which he's going to make money and then he'll set it off. So you could see operations running for 10 years. They were not declaring profits. They were not paying dividends. And the state equity was just useless. So then that was changed in 2012 to address how we can get increased government take. So it's fine now. And I'm saying we have the highest tax element when it comes to mining in Africa. Then we also discovered that no, the real meat, Gama will say, my German mayo is how much they spend every day. So if you want money to benefit this country, don't just focus on only receipts. Look at the entire chain. So work on your receipts, which is fine now. Get more. Make sure that they don't do gold plating. They don't over. Like they what should be 2 cedis, they do it 5 cedis. That kind of thing. Because the more they increase their cost, the less they pay to government. So a lot of work has been done by GRA in that regard. But then also you also work on value addition. Then the other two, and for me, the main thing is that I'm saying no less than a third of all the money they spend goes into various goods and services. So look at 2019, free for all fuel. The budget then was 100 million. If you look at the 2018 report, both fuel and lubricants, about $100 million. Then you bring in foreigners who also bring their capital to come and set up fuel stations and supply fuel. And then we said no. If you look at the data, this is not an activity that is so sophisticated that you have to open up for everybody. So let's protect the indigenous sector. So we say, okay, no more. Unless you're a Ghanaian citizen, unless a company is 100% owned by a Ghanaian, you cannot supply fuel. So within a spate of, and this is 2022 report, bear in mind. So within 2 years, fuel and lubricants, which was 100 million, for which the likes of Total, Engine, and Vivo were supplying, have moved from barely 100 million to 436 on fuel. If you add lubricants, you're talking about $480 million. My argument is that roughly $480 million spent by the companies to procure lubricants and fuel stayed in Ghana, went into the pocket of Ghanaians. Randy, fuel expenditures and lubricant expenditures in 2022 report is half of the total receipts of government. This is just 2 items on a 58 list. So it tells you that all your efforts, all your programs, all your policies, when you wake up every day, should be directing, or you should be directing them at these goods and services. Okay? The accounts will say, Ankra, what is it that you cannot manufacture here? You should give incentives for people to manufacture. So the lithium debate, this is the kind of things we're trying to explain to people. Everybody was obsessed with royalty. They were obsessed with shareholding. Because right now, they are in the throes of doing the environmental permitting process. If all goes well and they come back to us and we issue the operating permit, they may start construction. It will take 2 years. The project roughly is going to cost 200 million. What we should be concerned about is how much of the 200 million will go into expenditures by way of goods and services, and how much of that should go to Ghanaians. So we are ready now, okay? Because they've given us in their feasibility how much they will spend on. We asked them for a breakdown of the cost of construction, what to go into the construction, okay? And by our research, we can say that this item, so for instance, they said they are going to do contract mining, okay? We know the figure. Clearly, this cannot go to a foreigner. It has to go to a Ghanaian. They will supply fuel. They will provide catering services to staff on site. Randy, they will provide medical services to the nearly 1,000 workers. And please, for medical services, it's not just the worker, your spouses and children are involved. So if you are talking about roughly 900 workers, as they are filed in their feasibility, that they will be employing directly. I've not talked about contractors yet, because the catering guy, the fuel guy, the contract mining, all these guys are indirect because they will bring their workers. But direct employees, 900. Okay? You just say that, their spouses and children. So if that means that medical facilities, for example, we should be looking at, let's say, 2,000-3,000 people on site. Okay? When they do the advert, it will go to a Ghanaian. Until last year, foreign companies will take it. You can't bring a foreign doctor. You can't bring a foreign nurse because of the way our rules work. If you bring a doctor, he can only practice it after he does a convention. So, Randy, these are the things that should be engaging us, or we should be discussing as far as the debate is concerned. The 200 million, how much can you preserve for Ghanaians? You see, the fuel supply, the lubricants they'll use, civil works. So they're going to put up a lot of bungalows. They're going to do a lot of construction at the side there. Thankfully, last year, we now said all civil works are preserved for Ghanaians. Randy, this is the argument. Now, the first part report too has been brought now. Maybe in about 2-3 weeks, Minister will tell Ghanaians what is in there. I can tell you on top of my head what will be produced. We don't have the market. That is what the report is telling me. So quickly, before 2 years' time, okay, when the plans and the construction and development will be completed, within these 2 years, for example, that capacity that we don't have, right from this day, Minerals Commission, Minister, and other institutions should be planning, what do we do? We have to now tell people that this is available. Come, we'll look at the project economics, we'll give incentives for people to set up ceramics factory in South Point to deal with it. Other than that, if you look at the agreement, it says that it cannot be exported, first one in kaolin, and then the other byproducts cannot be exported unless minister allow. So, Randy, if we sit down for 2 years when the construction will be completed, I don't see construction starting perhaps until middle of June. So let's say 2 years from now. In their report, they said 22 months. So let's say 24 months. So within the next 2 years or so, if construction should start by, let's say, the second quarter or even third quarter, after we have gone through all the various approvals, okay, if we sit down and we don't do anything, what will happen is that come 2025, between the second quarter or the end of come 2026, okay, because we are now in 2024. So let's say 2 years from now, 2026, you just get up and realize that the FESPA, they will now write to the minister to say that permit us to take the FESPA and the kaolin, which is premium, outside this country because you don't have the capacity to use a byproduct. If we do that, we have failed Ghanaians. Randy, this is all that we have been telling Ghanaians in the lithium agreement. So, Minerals Commission, my minister, we have a lot of work to do to ensure that within these 2 years, the excess capacity that we don't have, I've seen it in the report already. This is just a gist of it. How do we ensure that by 2026, Barari don't come to us and say, I got to take the FESPA out, I got to take the premium kaolin out because you don't have the capacity. That is what we are doing now. That is the argument. So that's the value addition bit. So this royalty thing, this corporate income tax thing should stop. You must, as you said, balance the entire chain. Okay? What do you do to tap into the goods and services at the mining stage? How do you ensure that the kaolin and FESPA don't go out? Okay, so right now, very soon, we invite people to look at the project economics. If the power and all the associated costs is too much, then we have to look at the incentives. You understand? And so, if government says, I'll give you less, I'm not saying that's what is going to happen because we are yet to come to the project economics. So if government says that, oh, okay, for a ceramics factory to be set up in Salt Pond to be viable, we have to, fortunately, Ghanaians did the report, so it's not as if somebody is coming to lie to us. We are also passed, so we are not stupid. We need to give $50 million out in incentives. Perhaps you have to reduce power costs, reduce this, reduce that, etc. When they bring the project economics, then you have to ask yourself, if we lose $50 million every year in incentives because I have to reduce X, Y, Z, just to make sure that I get a ceramics factory, and the multiplying effect is more than $50 million, then we've gotten it right, we are there. But then if you give incentives and then what you get out of it will be far less than just having a factory, then you have not gotten it right. So we will need to gallop and double and make sure that all these things are fine-tuned within these 2 years so that we don't deceive Ghanaians. And we'll tell the true story. We'll put out the facts there that this is what it will cost to set up the factory. Do you understand? If we have been doing this thing for the past 20, 30 years, we will not be where we are. So that is that on how far we have come with the local content issue for nearly a decade. I will not even say 10 years because my latest report is 2022. So 2014, 15, so 16, years. 17, 18 years. So 8 years. But then this January is 10 years of the reforms. A lot has been achieved. We still have a lot to do.
Let's quickly, I don't think we'll have time to go through all the challenges, but let's look at probably 2 or 3 of them. So it's on page 30. You have it on page 30.
Page 30 of the report.
Yes, of your report. It's on page 30. Okay. So I see high inflation rate, fluctuating exchange rate, disincentive to investors and local, being a disincentive to investors and local suppliers. That's the first item I see.
Yes, in high inflation rate, fluctuation exchange rate.
Yes.
And Randy, I don't want to belabor this. It's a problem for every sector, manufacturing. So let me say this, then you understand it better. So let's say if you're a local manufacturer, I'm speaking generally, not into mining, but it's impact mining. And for whatever reason, your raw material is imported. Okay? And let's say the CD is 6 cedis in January last year. And let's say, for the sake of this argument, you import 10 tons of the raw material. Okay? The same 10 tons will not be the same today.
Yes.
Because the CD is it 12 or a little over 12?
Yes.
So if you are spending, let's say, $5 million to import 10 tons of a particular raw material, you might be spending perhaps twice of that. So those who are lucky are those who get all their raw materials locally. But even that one, remember that the local producer also, provide other services and pay for various taxes and other things.
Yes.
So even if you obtain your raw material locally 100%, he will tell you that, Jack, say 5 cedis, metal or 7. Then you see the so for us, those that are into manufacturing, that is why the items on the list that are manufactured, we are struggling to even get there, and we continue to import them because the Chinese produce it cheaply. So number one, it's a monumental issue.
Okay, I'm sure number two is right knowledge. Relatively
as for number two, the less said about it, the better. So for example, relative high interest rate charges by commercial banks. Yes. So if you are telling the Ghanaian, preferably our first choice would be Ghanaians, to have the opportunity to set up. So for example, if you are telling a Ghanaian who wants to now go and set up at Saltpond to use a Switchback kaolin and the other products for the ceramics factory, he will tell you that if I go to EcoBank with the rate, I cannot survive. So for example, that's how the MIF will come in and say, I'll give you the money. Okay? And take equity. You understand? So the whole idea of the MIF coming into the whole picture is this whole thing that we are looking at. So why should Randy Ceramics Limited go and take, I don't know what the interest rate is, go to EcoBank and go and take that high interest 40%. Rate. But then maybe for a $50 million ceramics project, or maybe let's say $300 million. But MIF can say, here you are, I'm giving you the 300 million.
But there's so much MIF can do.
Yeah, there's so much they can do with our money. You understand? There's so much. And these are the things I want people to hear. Other than that, the project will not be viable. You understand? You cannot ask anybody to go and borrow at this commercial rate, or you have to go to, let's say, GIF. Or those incentives under 1DF. So, for instance, after the end of the project economics, if we need to make sure that, look, this is viable, if we do X, Y, Z, and we tick all the boxes, we can say, okay, 1D, 1F, Saltpond, ceramics factory, you get all these incentives because you are located in perhaps not in an embassy area, or we are making a conscious effort to develop a rural economy. So these are the kind of things. So you see, at a point in time, it will not be just Minerals Commission and my minister. We've got to approach the Minister of Finance. We've got to go to the Minister of Trade and say, look, you also need to look at this for us, for the factory to be viable. It will be viable, but maybe, okay, Minister of Energy, they can't pay power at these kilowatt cents. So there's a lot of work to be done. Right. So people were just rushing and looking at equity, looking at royalties and taxes. They were getting it wrong.
Okay, so there's a lead time stroke delivery, inability to deliver within the required time.
So Minerals Commission gets up and say, this particular item, if you are not a Ghanaian incorporated company, registered with Minerals Commission, and all your shareholders and directors are not Ghanaians, you cannot supply it. There are about 4 or 5 of them. So there's no monopoly. You are servicing over maybe 20 plus companies. Then Goldfish gives you a contract. Goldfish has no problem with your quality. But he needed the grinding media or steel balls or whatever by 14th March because he needs to take advantage of his production target. Now gold price is very high. 14th March, you have not delivered. You brought the items perhaps a week after. Okay? And price of gold can even fall by $100 in a day. So they sometimes complain to us. And then we call the registered companies and give them warning that, look, so sometimes if you realize that, no, you cannot deliver within 2 weeks, the company will rush to Minerals Commission and say that, Minerals Commission, Randy Enterprise has just told me that he will fail me. He cannot deliver this on schedule. I'm afraid I need to reach this production target. So allow me for an Indian or a Turkish or a Chinese company to deliver it. Sometimes they do it at extra cost and even DHL the items. So we've also been telling the Ghanaians that, look, you come and sit on our neck and say, we have the capacity. So when the companies complain, it's not just delivery. Sometimes the quality, sometimes the specs, etc. So we normally do what do you call it?
Because you have, as one of the challenges, concerns about quality of certain locally
quality by and large has improved a lot because of the engagement. Mincom, the companies, and then the mining companies. And if you look at the procurement law too, they are supposed to assist. But a few still have quality issues.
Do you sanction these local companies who are unable to deliver within the required time frame and also have concerns with their quality? I ask this because their actions can also undermine the whole policy.
Yes, so Randy, once we exact serious fines on the mining companies for supplying 98%, when you said in your approved procurement plan you do 100, and we punish you and ask you to pay $2-3 million for the 2% you fail, it is, we don't find the supplier. But then my disappointment is that now the mining company will come and crown me and say, Ayisi or Minerals Commission, give us a permission to import. It defeats all our efforts to ensure that we keep the money here. So I get disappointed in that bit. And so that is it. They will come. They will just come and tell you.
You don't want some of these companies. You don't threaten to blacklist them.
It does happen. So that's not the only thing. And sometimes the local people overcharge.
Okay.
So you say, but they have.
Competitive.
So there's a case where company came and was trying to give the company to a company in Turkey. Then the Ghanaian company came to me and complained. There were about 3 or so. They participated in the bid. So I called a meeting. That's part of our job. And then the company was honest and showed me everything because we have the power to request for it. The bidding process, the price quotation, and all those things. We did this in camera. And then I realized that the company had a case. Okay? The same quality, the same thing from Turkey. And even they came 3rd and 4th. So I had to now call the 3 Ghanaian companies and say, have you looked at it? Do you have a case? They said, oh, yeah. So now the company had to bend backwards and say, if you can match the price, because fortunately they have not signed a contract. If you can match the price, they will give you the job. So I had to intervene, and then we called up the Chinese and the Turkish one. So I am tired of doing that.
But by the first 2 challenges,
the issue was not about quality. So this one went through.
Yeah. So I'm saying that by the first 2 we looked at, which has to do with the high inflation rate, fluctuating exchange rate, relatively high interest rates, will it not be difficult for many of these Ghanaian companies to compete with these Turkish and Indian and Chinese companies?
You have made my day. It is so tough, very tough. So the little I can do on my side or Mincom side, we're doing it. So for instance, a Ghanaian will walk to you and say, oh, Master, this is your money for registration fees and other things. I don't have it. I'm just a new entrant. So waive it for, no, we don't waive. I can pay you maybe $1,000 CD equivalent. Let me go and do the job and come back. So where,
flexible payments.
Yeah, so where Mincom on his own can make life a bit better for the Ghanaians to enter, we will do that. But some of the things are beyond me. So I cannot go and tell the Ghana Commercial Bank, because they also tell you they are operating within the financial environment. So perhaps there are ideas like, can we get some special incentives? Can we have a dedicated bank for all these things? You understand? So can the likes of you or your colleagues who have money come in and put in money? Not to come and tell me that if I have $5 million, I'll go and buy real estate at Cantonment, expatriate to come and buy it. And then you see me on the street and tell me foreigners are taking our properties away. But now, Randy, trust me, Ghanaians now understanding mining. They are taking a lot of risks. And those who took the risk 5-6 years ago are now the richest people in town. So that is also that I want you to understand.
So let's end today here, and we'll continue with the challenges next week, because there are still a lot of issues that we have to deal with. Thank you so very much. It's always a pleasure having you here. And so we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Let me say